What if the clearest path to victory is actually walking straight into suffering? What if the moment everything seems to be falling apart is actually the moment God's plan is unfolding most perfectly? And what if the people closest to Jesus still struggled to understand the direction he was truly going? In Mark 10:32-34, we witness a deeply emotional and powerful moment. Jesus is walking ahead of his disciples, heading toward Jerusalem. The text tells us something striking. The disciples are astonished, and those who follow are afraid. There is tension in the air. Something feels different. Jesus is not walking like someone avoiding danger. He is walking with purpose, with clarity, with determination. And then once again, he pulls his disciples aside and speaks plainly. This is the third time Jesus predicts his suffering, death, and resurrection. He says, "We are going up to Jerusalem, and the Son of Man will be delivered over to the chief priests and the teachers of the law. They will condemn him to death and hand him over to the Gentiles, who will mock him, spit on him, flog him, and kill him. 3 days later he will rise." These words are direct, unfiltered, unsoftened. There is no metaphor here, no symbolic language. Jesus is clearly telling them what is about to happen. And yet, despite how clear the message is, the disciples still struggle to understand it. To grasp why this moment matters so deeply, we need to slow down and step into the emotional weight of it. Jesus is not speaking about a possibility. He is speaking about certainty. Not a prediction based on uncertainty, but a declaration of what he already knows will happen. And yet, there is something even more powerful beneath the words themselves, his willingness to continue forward anyway. Because knowing what is ahead does not make him stop. It makes him move with intention. This is where the depth of his mission begins to reveal itself. Jesus is not being forced into suffering. He is choosing to walk toward it. This is not defeat. This is purpose. But the disciples cannot fully see this yet, because from their perspective, strength avoids suffering, victory avoids humiliation, success avoids rejection. But Jesus is revealing a completely different kind of strength, a strength that does not avoid pain but walks through it with purpose, a strength that does not deny suffering but transforms it. And this is difficult for the human mind to accept. Even today, this tension remains familiar. We naturally avoid discomfort. We resist uncertainty. We fear loss, rejection, and pain. But Jesus is showing that not all suffering is meaningless. Some suffering carries redemption. Some paths that look like defeat are actually leading to restoration. The disciples hear his words, but they cannot yet connect them with hope. Because when Jesus speaks about being mocked, spit on, flogged, and killed, it sounds like failure. But Jesus adds something at the end that changes everything. 3 days later, he will rise. This is the turning point of the entire message. Because suffering is not the final chapter. Death is not the conclusion. The story does not end in darkness. There is resurrection waiting on the other side. But at this moment, the disciples are still holding on to expectations of a different kind of kingdom. They are expecting immediate victory, visible power, political or earthly restoration. They are not yet prepared for a kingdom that is built through sacrifice. And this gap between expectation and reality creates confusion. That is why Mark notes their emotional state, astonishment and fear. They sense something significant is happening, but they cannot fully interpret it. Jesus is walking ahead of them, leading the way into something they do not yet understand. And this detail is important. He is not being dragged. He is not being pushed. He is leading. This shows intentionality. He is not reacting to events. He is fulfilling a mission. And that mission includes suffering, but also resurrection. This passage invites us to reflect on how often we misunderstand the direction of God's work in our own lives. There are moments when we also feel like we are walking into uncertainty, when the path ahead does not look like what we expected, when clarity is replaced with confusion, when comfort gives way to challenge. And in those moments, it is easy to assume something has gone wrong. But Jesus' journey reminds us that difficulty does not always mean deviation from purpose. Sometimes it is the very path of purpose. The disciples could not yet see the full picture. They only saw the suffering, but Jesus saw beyond it. He saw restoration. He saw resurrection. He saw victory beyond the cross. And this is where faith becomes essential. Because faith is not always about understanding the path. it is about trusting the one who walks it. Even when the destination is not fully visible, even when the process is uncomfortable, even when the message is difficult to accept. There is also something deeply human in Jesus choosing to speak this prediction 3 times. It shows patience, it shows repetition, it shows the desire for understanding. He is not hiding the truth from them, he is preparing them. But preparation often takes time to take root. And even though they hear it, they are still learning how to process it. This reflects something we often experience spiritually. There are truths we hear before we are ready to fully understand them. And over time, understanding grows not only through hearing, but through experience. The disciples would later remember these words differently after the resurrection. At this moment, the message feels heavy, but later, it will become the foundation of hope. Because what once sounded like defeat will be revealed as victory. And what once felt like loss will become the source of eternal life. Jesus' journey toward Jerusalem is not accidental, it is purposeful. It is the fulfillment of a larger plan that stretches beyond immediate understanding. And even though the disciples are afraid, they continue to follow him. That itself is significant, because following Jesus does not always mean understanding everything in advance. Sometimes it means walking forward while still learning, still questioning, still growing, and trusting that clarity will come in time. There is also a powerful contrast in this passage. Jesus walks ahead with determination. The disciples follow with uncertainty. That contrast highlights the difference between divine purpose and human perception. What feels like chaos to them is actually order in motion. What feels like loss is actually unfolding redemption. And this is where the message begins to speak beyond the original moment, because it invites us to consider how often our perception of situations may be limited. We see fragments, but God sees the full story. We see the present struggle, but he sees the outcome already prepared. We see suffering, but he sees resurrection. This does not remove the reality of pain, but it reframes it. It gives it meaning within a larger narrative, a narrative that does not end at the cross, a narrative that continues beyond the grave. And that is why Jesus speaks with such clarity, because clarity is needed when the path is difficult, even if it is not fully understood in the moment. So this passage is not only about prediction, it is about preparation. Preparation for what is to come. Preparation for what cannot yet be fully grasped. And preparation for a truth that will later transform confusion into conviction. As we reflect on this moment, we are reminded that spiritual journeys often include seasons of uncertainty. But uncertainty is not the absence of purpose, and difficulty is not the absence of direction. Jesus' path toward Jerusalem shows us that even the most painful moments can be part of a greater redemption, and that trust does not always depend on full understanding. Sometimes it depends on willingness to continue walking forward, even when the destination is not fully visible yet. Because the story does not end in suffering. It ends in resurrection. Thank you for watching this video. If this message spoke to you, please take a moment to like, follow the channel, and share this video with someone who needs encouragement to trust God's purpose, even in uncertain seasons today.